Did you know that what you do in the first hour after your meal often matters more than the meal itself? This is especially true for those of us who are not metabolically flexible, so folks with insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. I talked about these conditions in my previous video, which I will link at the end of this one. After you eat a meal, your blood sugar rises, which is actually a normal response, physiological response. This is not the problem. The problem is when you eat high sugar or processed food that increases your blood sugar repeatedly, which then sends a signal to pancreas to secrete, pump out something called insulin, which is a hormone that will bring and stabilize that blood sugar. This repeated state where it requires insulin to be pumped out is called hyperinsulinemia, and it is a key driving factor behind cardiometabolic diseases. So the four horsemen of that: cancer, dementia, diabetes type 2, and cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer globally. So hyperinsulinemia is what drives premature cellular aging. This is not typically something you can observe, and even not something that you can feel. It doesn't necessarily hurt, at least not for many years of this continuous elevated insulin. So this hyperinsulinemia causes premature cellular aging, and that can lead to not only chronic diseases, but premature death. The good news is I'm going to teach you 3 simple things that you can do right now that will reduce your risk of blood sugar and insulin spikes. Then by doing so is going to reduce your risk of premature cellular aging and dying from chronic diseases. My name is Dr. Adriana Kekic. I'm a pharmacist and nutritionist trained in genetics, and for the past 20 years working as a clinical pharmacist, including at the nation's leading hospital, I have become obsessed with sciences of genes, molecules, and longevity so that I can figure out what to do for myself and my patients, family members, my clients, so that we can expand number of years that we live in good health and vitality, which is called healthspan, and by doing so, hopefully expand our lifespan, which is number of years we're going to live. Healthspan and lifespan combined are often referred to as longevity. What I have realized, especially working with folks who are metabolically healthy well beyond their 7th decade, is that this is not a matter of genetic lottery or luck. And yes, you may have won genetic lottery and you're able to eat whatever you want, maybe even smoke and drink and live well into your 9th or even 10th decade. But that's not a reality for most of us. The good news with that is even if you did not inherit those so-called longevity genes, there is a lot that you can do to expand your health span and also expand the number of years that you live. You see, what I have learned is that longevity is about knowing your cells, but knowing your cells in the framework that is not yet adopted or done in medicine today. We are considering everything from your genes to your gut to your mitochondria, which are little powerhouses of the cell, to your mind. This is what I refer to as the cellular intelligence in action, which means everything is information, from the food you eat to how you move, who you hang out with, your thoughts, the environment that you live in. All of it is information that your body has to do something with, and that information also does something to your body. So what I want to do today is I want to give you knowledge and insights that will move the needle in the right direction. I want to share with you what I have gathered over the years of working both as a medical professional, but also being a patient myself. So that way you don't have to repeat some of the trial and errors that I have done, that you can then use those insights and apply them today so that you can live long and healthy. Of course, as with everything, the key here is going to be personalization. So this is not a medical advice. This is my guidance to you that you can further then take to your physicians or medical teams and discuss to see what your tailored, personalized health span journey could look like. Between you and me, and I'm going to say this lovingly, medicine of today is stuck in barbaric principles. We're still in this era of reactive medicine where the treatment is designed for us versus truly personalized to you and me. Why do I say that? I say that because we know medicine is still stuck in that one-size-fits-all approach. And I know that firsthand because for the last decades, I had this enormous privilege and luck to work at the leading hospital in the country and globally, where I have worked as a pharmacogenomic clinical pharmacy specialist, which meant that I was at the cutting edge of bringing emerging technologies, including genetic testing, to personalized treatments. And yet, this is, although it has been a decade or so ago since I started doing it, this is still not a standard of medical practice. In this video, you're going to learn 2 takeaways that will help prevent mistakes that I'm seeing with so many high-performing individuals that turn their greatest asset, which is their health, into their biological liability. First, I'm going to teach you 3 things that you can do right now and every day that will reduce your risk of dying from chronic diseases, including those 4 horsemen of death. Second, I'll explain briefly why those simple daily habits stack up, compound, and why they work. So let's get started. Before I give you the 3 things that can reduce your blood sugar and reduce your risk of dying from chronic diseases, including type 2 diabetes, I have one bonus point for you. You don't need to do all 3 of those things to see the benefit. If you are a minimalist, you can choose one and stick with it. If you like variety, you can mix them up. And if you are competitive, like I am, you're going to do all 3 of them every day. First, after your meal, get up and move. So you can choose either walk at least 10 minutes after your meal. You can do that around the house, or you can ideally go outside if your weather permits, go outside and walk. If you're just starting on this, don't think about it. My 2 hacks are, I will often put my shoes before I go have my meal. Now, if your house or work etiquette does not allow wearing shoes as you're eating your meal, then I'll give you a second hack that I often do, and I tell my clients that they can do too. And that is, if you have a sweet tooth or maybe something else that you either like to snack on or maybe engage with, leave it by the door where your shoes are at, and then after you're done with your meal, go grab that, put the shoes on, and head outside. Ideally, you will want to walk a little longer, so I said at least 10 minutes, but a little longer after more substantial meal or more carb-heavy, especially carb-heavy processed food meal. Ideally, you would want to avoid any processed food. But life is not ideal, so you do the best that you can. For example, in our household, we have a rule where we as a family go for a walk after dinner. This gives us opportunity to also walk and talk and catch up on our day and maybe even plan some fun activities for over the weekend. Most of us, regardless of what we do, be it an athlete, be it an executive, be it a busy parent, most of us will fold after dinner. So this becomes a key moment where you can change that behavior. I challenge you to document how you feel like when you have gone for a walk immediately after your dinner versus when you didn't. You see, the benefits of that are not only, but they're also mood boosting, even relationship building, depending if you're doing it with your partner, family member, maybe a friend, or your kid. And of course, your dog counts too. Something as simple as movement after your meal can change what that meal, regardless of what you ate, does to your body. Again, food is going to get broken down, which eventually will increase your blood sugar. But if you can prevent spikes of insulin to bring down that blood sugar that's now floating in your bloodstream, that is going to reduce overall inflammation and metabolic storm that will cause damage, especially if there is a repeated pattern year after year. You see, when you move, that blood sugar no longer just sits freely in your bloodstream, but rather your muscles start to vacuum that sugar from the blood inside their muscle cells, which then brings your blood sugar down. The beautiful thing about the movement is that it doesn't require insulin, and I will tell you about that in a bit. There is another thing that happens when you move. There are 2 main organs that love to uptake blood sugar. And that is not only your muscles, but also your brain. So blood circulation, movement can also stimulate your brain to get more sugar inside, so there is less blood sugar floating around. Imagine if you did this with every major meal, especially every dinner, when the system starts to wind down. That compounded effect, day after day, year after year, can reverse and even prevent metabolic storm from happening, almost regardless of what you're putting in your body. Now, this is not an excuse to say, I can eat junk. There is a certain threshold that your cells are going to reach, plus the cells need nutrition themselves. But this is certainly a method that you can use, so you feel less guilty if you're having a very delicious meal that is also perhaps more carb heavy, or you're enjoying a holiday with your family and you don't necessarily want to just rely on very specific foods to get your metabolism revving. Second, do squats for about 10 minutes after every meal. You can do this either in front of your TV, as opposed to lounging after a dinner or after a meal, or you can even pull up some music, and you can even do that while you are scrolling through your socials, as long as you are flexing your muscles, so your muscles can use up and pull that sugar from your bloodstream into those muscle cells, that then they can store it and use it later as an energy, or simply make energy out of that sugar. Why do squats work? Well, because you're activating some of the largest muscle groups that we humans have. Your glutes, your buttocks, and your legs, your quads. When you contract those large muscles, they create a huge energy demand, and that requires fuel. So the preferred fuel for muscles and most of the cells is going to be sugar. So that's how the sugar gets pulled from your blood inside of those cells. So let your bum melt away that sugar. What I love about this is that you don't need to get prepared. You don't need to put on your walking shoes or workout clothes. Simply get out of the chair and do your squats. Now, I understand this might be socially awkward if you do it at the restaurant, so maybe try it or do a different strategy like walking. But you know, I've been in those situations myself, and I have had a couple of folks who join me in doing squats. So perhaps you make new friends. Third, probably my favorite, is put some music on and move your body. And do it while you're cleaning the table. Ideally, you want to do it with your family members or friends who you're dining with. One of those, you can just dance with yourself. You know, I will tell you, one of my greatest life joys is actually doing that. Dancing like nobody's watching. And if you haven't done that in a while, consider this your doctor's orders to do some dancing like nobody's watching. And you can report back to me and tell me, how did that make you feel? Okay, as I promised, in my next video, I'm going to explain to you why these strategies actually work. And I already hinted at the main mechanism, which is, can we pull that sugar after we have eaten into those cells that actually can use it, especially muscle and brain, as opposed to storing that sugar and relying on insulin to help us store that sugar, which will end up usually being stored as fat. This is not a good thing. Once you understand the reason behind this, I firmly believe that this is going to solidify you in creating this change, a habit. This becomes a habit that will put you on the road towards longevity, which really means living long, healthy. In the meantime, if you want to do a deeper dive into protocols and science and supplements and so on behind what I'm talking about here, then you can check out my Substack, where I write deep dive about not only longevity, but these first few editions are really focused on what moves the needle or the lever that we can pull that will change the outcomes for better for almost virtually all of us, and that is the cardiometabolic health, which is what we partially talked about today. Okay, until the next video, know your cells, know yourself.